Okay, so I am here on a Sunday, and I don't usually record on Sundays, but that is my cleaning and organizing my office day. And I realize at the beginning of the year, we set goals and we set resolutions, and I need to get my stash a little bit better under control. Not because I don't have the space, I do, and not necessarily because I don't have the budget to buy more yarn, but just because I don't want to buy more yarn. I feel that need. I mean, I do. I want to buy more yarn. Let's be straight here. But there is that need to be a little bit less spendy on things. I want to be a little bit more accountable. I have a large stash. So, what I want to do is, I want to take you with me on a 5-week journey to really review my yarn and go into some serious yarn organization, de-stash, accountability. How do we do this and really maintain some sanity around what it is that is our craft? And that's what I want to do with you. So today we're going to kind of start out the journey. I'm going to reveal a little bit about what my stash looks like. I'm going to kind of just talk a little bit about how we get here. And look, this is all very personal for me, but I want it to be a learning opportunity for you as well. So join me as I go through this accountability, and hopefully I get to impart some new tips and some new strategies and some new thoughts that will help you if you're kind of in that position where you want to really get your stash under control. I've seen a lot of videos of these de-stashes, and a de-stash, when somebody feels overwhelmed by their stash, I've seen videos where they had one upright cabinet and it was full to the brim, and that was too much for them because they live in a small space. I don't live in a small space. Frankly, I could probably, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Yarn Geek videos, but she has a stash. And she's not looking to decrease her stash by any means. In fact, she's looking to increase her stash. But she could stock an entire yarn store and then some. I don't want to go there. I probably have the space that I could go there, but I don't want to go there. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So let's talk about some numbers. I did some preliminary. I'm going to dive deeper on, I think, the next episode, but I'm going to take you for a tour. And as I'm taking you for a little bit of this tour, I'm going to talk some more of these numbers because it's insane. Okay? Like, it's crazy insane to me. To me, this is all relative. And that's what I want you to understand, is that it is all relative. My stash for me right now feels too large. Like, I've got a great stash to stash dive and go shopping in my stash, but there are definitely some things in there that I'm like, I am never going to use this yarn, and I need to make sure that I am serious with myself that if I am not going to use that yarn, I should not be keeping it just because, well, maybe someday I'll find the perfect project for it. So I've done a rough estimate, and I have well over 92,000 yards of yarn. That's approximately 40,000 grams, or 46 sweater quantities. Now, of course, not all of that is sweater quantity because, it's mix and match and scrap and that kind of stuff. I have 1 or 2 skeins here and there, but that's a lot of yarn for me. So let me kind of show you a little bit about where I have it all. You can see over here, this is where I have all my DKs and sport weight, which is probably what I use the most of. This cabinet over here has all of my fingering weight in this drawer, which is bursting at the seams. There's just too much of it in this space. And I use a lot of fingering weight, but that's a lot. It doesn't fit in the drawer. And then I've got like all my scrap quantities in here, which is kind of really handy, except that those are bigger. I don't know, they're bigger, so I probably could like use that drawer for things that are less squishy. I have this new shelf system that I just put up last week, and I can put some sweater quantities up here that don't fit in other good spots. So that's what I kind of plan on using that for. I have some pretty yarn there, and in that cabinet I have a lot of pretty yarn, and then I've got some more pretty yarn there. So those are things that I probably won't be using too much of. And then we have the beast. This is where I have the vast majority of my larger quantities. Or my bigger quantities. I've got the super bulky, the bulky. This is worsted acrylic. This is worsted mixed. And I've got a little bit more worsted mixed here and there. If we go down a little bit further, I have some project quantities down there. And I also have a box of specialty yarns that have like the eyelash yarn and the weird yarns. We don't use that often. So that's what I got. Okay, and we are back. This is just, I don't know. So why do we end up buying so much yarn? Well, first of all, a lot of this yarn I did not purchase myself. A lot of it was gifted to me, and that is fabulous. And I'm so happy and fortunate that I have had large quantities gifted to me. And I love a lot of what was gifted to me. But that doesn't mean that I didn't buy a lot of yarn. I have personally, I love the look of yarn. I've always been wanting to explore different yarns. I've only been crocheting now for going on 3 years. So I'm still buying a lot of yarn that I just want to try. I want to see what yarns I love, which ones really work for me, the way I crochet, the projects I like to do, all that good stuff. So that's one reason that I tend to buy a lot of yarn. Another reason is because I have this psychology. I buy a lot of yarn online, and the psychology of the free shipping gets me. Like, if I'm going to buy 3 skeins for a project and it doesn't quite qualify for the free shipping, I'm going to buy another type of yarn so that I can get the free shipping. I might not need that other yarn, but hey, if I'm going to buy yarn to test out anyway, that's a good reason to do it, right? So I'm buying more than I necessarily need for the project because I feel like it's saving me money. But it's not really, because the shipping might have been $14 and now I just spent $40 more to get the free shipping. But the price per skein went down, right? Because I'm not dividing that 14 across the number of skeins that I just bought. So I think that's one of the reasons. I am a very tactile person, so buying yarn is a very tactile process for me, and it's a very satisfying process. I love the feel of yarn. If I go to like a local yarn shop or a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby, Joann's once upon a time, feeling that yarn, like I have this desire to have it, as well as the visual, pretty yarns, like the hand-dyed yarns. You know what? I have some that maybe I'll never use. I don't know, but they are gorgeous to look at, and I just like having them because they're gorgeous. So there is certainly an element of this where it's like, I buy the yarn not because I want it for a specific project, but because I want to look at it. And I do have yarn displayed, and that makes me happy. So There's part of that element as well. I mean, there are so many reasons why we end up buying more yarn than we actually need. I want to know what's your reason down below. Share with me, because I'd love to hear all of the good stories for sure. I want this to be a very interactive series, so share with me down below what it is the reason that you tend to overbuy yarn. Okay, so let's move into some of the rules that I'm setting for myself. And if you're going to go on a no buy or an anti buy or a limited buy or whatever kind of rules you want to set for yourself, I want to know what those are in the comments below. For me, it's not going to be a no buy. That is not going to be my goal. I really do want to decrease my stash over the course of the year, but it's not an entirely no buy ban because I have certain things that I do want to still be able to buy yarn for. And one of those is if I get a commission for a denim jacket and I don't have the yarn, it's always going to be a shop my stash first. But if I don't have the yarn in stash, I will need to buy yarn for that specific commission because I don't want to tell somebody, no, I can't do that because I don't have the yarn. So that is definitely an option. Now, what I would like to do is focus on if I have the yarn in my stash, but not quite enough of it, which I've run across a few times now, even if it's a discontinued yarn, because I have a lot of discontinued yarn that's been gifted to me, maybe check Ravelry first. Is there somebody else that has that yarn that I can just buy from them the extra quantity that I need in order to use up what's in my stash? So I have some ideas around that. The other thing that I will continue to buy yarn for is my yarn reviews. I do those every Saturday. They are going really well for the channel. I think it's a fabulous idea. I enjoy doing them. And I will continue to buy yarn for those purposes when I get good recommendations or I run out of yarn that I have on hand that I think would be a good yarn review. Obviously, I'm not going to review discontinued yarn because nobody can buy it anymore, so it doesn't make sense to do that. And I'm not going to probably review too much of the high-end local yarn store yarns or hand-dyed yarns because I want to make sure that I'm doing yarns that people would buy on a regular basis. I might throw some in here and there. I might throw some in here and there, but that's not going to be the majority of those. So fortunately, most of the yarn that I would buy is going to be on the less expensive end and fairly easily accessible. But I need to set a rule for myself that if I buy yarn for any reason, I don't just buy extra for the sake of buying extra. I really need to not do that. I need to have a specific purpose in mind for the yarn and not buy sweater quantities if sweater quantities are not needed. So for my yarn reviews, I generally like to have 2 skeins. I could get away with 1 skein, but I like to have 2 for aesthetic purposes. It just makes things a little bit easier, and that's okay with me. But if I buy 2 skeins, I like the yarn, I decide I want to do a project with it, then I can certainly buy the supplemental quantity needed for that project. Granted, they might not be the same dye lot. I'm not too concerned about that. Most of the projects I do aren't, I've never tracked dye lots. It's never been an issue for me. Knock on wood, it never is. But, that's the rules I'm setting for myself. And if I manage to really knock it out of the park and reduce my stash. Oh, the other thing that I have, the other rule that I have is 1 in, 2 out. So I've heard of the rule 1 in, 1 out, where if you bring 1 in, you have to use at least 1. For me, it's going to be based on grams, and it's 1 in, 2 out. So for every gram I bring in, I need to use up at least 2 grams so that I'm making a dent. That way, when I buy the new yarn for the commissions or for something like that, and you usually end up having a little bit extra, I need to make sure that I'm using more yarn from my stash than I am buying. So that's my 1 in, 2 out rule. And then if I make a really big, serious dent on all of this, then I can kind of lighten up the rules a little bit and be a little bit more relaxed and not as restrictive. Then maybe I can go to a 1 in, 1 out kind of rule and be okay with that. But I need to hit at least 1,000 grams decrease. So those are the rules that I'm setting for myself. If you have different rules, I would love to hear from you. I think this would be a great kind of community project where we can all share our ideas. And if you want additional ideas, then you can read the comments of other posters and see what their ideas are so that we can kind of build a resource of how to manage our stashes. I don't necessarily want to call this a de-stash. I don't know. I feel that that's restrictive. I tried that last year and it just felt like I was going to end up beating myself up for not meeting those goals. And that didn't feel good. So it's a stash management project. That's really what this is, a stash management. Okay. So in the next video, I am going to do the purge, and that is going to be where I really get serious and go through my stash. It's fairly organized now, but I really want to get serious and de-stash some of this yarn that I've been hanging on to because, well, I don't know, maybe I'll find a project to use that with. And for me, that de-stash is going to really focus on how a yarn feels. I have some acrylics and some wools that they are in my stash and they are just unpleasant for me to feel. And I've kept them because it's like, well, maybe I'll sell them on Ravelry eventually, or maybe I'll find a project for it. And it is time for me to say, nope, girlfriend, I'm going to let that go. So we'll do a little bit of our real serious de-stash, the initial kind of process of that in the next video, and kind of talk a little bit about that cleansing process, right? I mean, I am definitely not going for the Marie Kondo minimalist approach here. I love having a stash that I can shop from. But I do have to get serious about what I'm not actually going to use, okay? So that's what we're going to do on the next video and get a little bit more serious about this. Are you ready? Are you ready for the journey? Do you want to just follow along as I go through, or are you going to be on your own stash management journey as well? Let me know in the comments below. And until next week, Farrah, frog us out of here.